Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be starting very shortly. We're going to give people a little bit more time to join, and we'll be back in just a moment. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Block, physical therapist and regional director at Spear Physical and Occupational Therapy. I'd like to welcome back those of you who have attended one of our other webinars, as well as welcome those of you who are joining us for the first time. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy days to learn with us. For those of you who do not know who we are, Spear is a private outpatient practice that has been around for over 20 years, with currently 20 locations located all over the New York City area. We have successfully continued to offer in-person care through the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as have launched Spear Live for those who are looking to stay in and receive care using our telehealth platform from the comfort of your own home. In our clinics, we are strategically going above and beyond the CDC guidelines to ensure the safety and well-being of everyone. You can find more detailed information on those safety measures by visiting our website at spearcenter.com. We are here for you in whichever way makes you feel most comfortable. If you are looking for individualized care, either in the clinic or through telehealth, please reach out to us at your convenience and we'll get you set up for an appointment right away. We're excited to be with you today to discuss home and office ergonomics, as well as provide you with a mobility and postural strengthening routine you can perform at your desk. As part of our session today, we'll be talking through and demonstrating some of these exercises, and we welcome you to follow along and practice with us as you feel comfortable. Please note that if you're experiencing any pain while performing any of these, and/or you feel unsteady or unsafe doing the exercises, please stop and reach out to us so we can support you directly. Although we don't anticipate any technical issues today, please be patient with us should any arise as we navigate through this technology. Just some housekeeping stuff before we get started. Throughout the webinar, we want to hear from you. If you have any questions, please feel free to let us know your thoughts in the Q&A feature. To find where that is, please take a moment to hover over your mouse button at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a Q&A option pop up. That is where you'll put questions, and we will do our best to address as many of them as we can during the webinar. It's best to put questions in the Q&A. If you put questions in the chat feature, we will likely be unable to get to them during this webinar. For those of you who are watching through YouTube Live, we're monitoring the comments section there as well, so please feel free to type your questions in. Lastly, there will be times where multiple panelists are on the screen. For the best viewing experience, please select Gallery View at the top right corner of your Zoom screen, so you'll be able to see multiple panelists at one time. So let's talk more about our goals for the day and what we'll be covering today. Today, we're going to be reviewing proper desk ergonomics. We're going to explain common, simple ways that you can set up your desk more ergonomically. We're going to explain common signs and symptoms that you may have with a poor ergonomic setup. We're going to run through a quick and easy desk mobility exercise routine you can do anywhere, and of course, answer all of your questions live. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our team of panelists. We're going to welcome everyone on the screen now. Our presenters today are Colby Choi and Ryan Pena. Hey, Colby. Hey, Ryan.
What's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
Colby Choi is a physical therapist who works both at our Upper West 75th Street location and our Midtown West 44th Street location. Ryan's one of our physical therapists at our Tribeca Chambers Street location. Hey, Ryan.
What's going on, Dave?
Lastly, we have Michelle Rooney, who's the clinic director of our Chelsea location on West 16th Street. She'll be helping us with answering your questions in the Q&A today.
Hi.
Just a reminder to everyone, it's best to be in gallery view, as I mentioned before, so that you can see everyone at the same time. If you've done that, you should be able to see all four of us at once. All righty, Michelle, Colby, and I are going to say goodbye for now. Ryan, kick us off.
All right. First off, thanks everyone for joining. As mentioned, my name is Ryan Pena. I am a physical therapist at Spears Chambers Street location in Tribeca. We're super excited to have you all here for our webinar. Before we get started though, we wanted to take a little poll, ask you guys a little question, just to make sure you're all still with us. Question here popping up on your guys' screen. How many hours do you think you spend sitting at a desk on an average day? So go ahead and everyone can type in your answers there. Give everyone a moment here. Answers less than 2 hours, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 or more. All right, getting some answers in here. Awesome. Good. So we're getting a pretty decent spread. I'd say the majority are definitely between that 4 to 8 hours right there, which sounds about right. And the reason we're asking this question is because the majority of people at work spend most of their time either sitting or standing at a desk. Given the current pandemic, many people are working from home and don't have that good ergonomic desk setup. So that kind of brings us to our first main topic of this webinar that we want to cover, and that is just what is ergonomics? So you usually hear that word when you're in the workplace or when you're talking about furniture. Ergonomics refers to the study of people's efficiency in their working environment. The goal of ergonomics is to prevent musculoskeletal disorders and injuries, increase comfort, increase efficiency and productivity, and improve quality of life. All of our working environments are different, so creating the right ergonomic setup is a bit personalized and should be slightly different for everyone. Because of that, today's going to be a little bit more generalized, and we're going to kind of cover things as a whole and not just one perfect thing. So why do we need a good ergonomic setup? The simple answer, there are consequences to a poor workstation setup. The immediate consequences include overuse of musculature, fatigue, and pain. The more long-term consequences or chronic issues that can come are both tight and weak muscles, decreased productivity, long-term pain, decreased participation in the things that matter to us most. So now, before we get started onto the proper ergonomic setup, I want to emphasize that there isn't one specific position or setup for everyone. If there's one thing we want you to all take away from this presentation, it's that movement is key. Throughout the day, we should be changing our position, walking around, stand to get a drink of water, grab a snack, talk to a neighbor. Today, we're going to show you a good position to try to maintain, as well as some stretches and exercise that can improve your mobility and posture. But remember, change in position is actually good for you, and no one position is going to work for everyone. Also, if any stretch, position, or exercise we covered during today's presentation causes you any additional pain or discomfort, we advise you not to continue with it. If you're currently experiencing pain or you may be feeling any poor posture symptoms due to a poor setup, we recommend you schedule an appointment at one of our many clinics for a postural evaluation and ergonomic assessment. So Excuse me. With that, I'm going to bring up a slide here that are going to go over Spear's guidelines for a proper ergonomic setup. So I'm going to go through this a little quickly, but don't worry because we're going to go through each item in a little bit more detail in just a bit. In addition, these guidelines will all be sent to you and they should be available on our website. So don't feel like you have to write all this down right away. So let's get started. We're going to talk about office chair, so the chair you're sitting in. I'm going to run through these a little quickly. So seat height, you want your knees about the same height as your hips. Feet should be supported on the floor. Seat depth, so how far back you're sitting in that chair. We want about 1 fist distance, or about 2 to 4 inches, give or take, between the back of the knee and the edge of the chair when sitting back. So we'll kind of go into that a little bit later. Seat back, we want a little curve to be able to support the low of our back, that lumbar spine, and keep us in a natural arch that we'll kind of get into. Armrests should be equal between the left and the right. They should be parallel to the floor. Should not prevent from getting too close to the desk. If they're sticking out too much, they might prevent you. So we want to avoid that. And they want to keep our elbows in a 90-degree angle, and we'll also cover that. We're going to go ahead and move on in to the standing and sitting desk guidelines. We'll go ahead and switch that slide. Perfect. All right, so covering the keyboard. We want the keyboard positioned at elbow height. So again, elbows at that 90-degree angle. That's the same whether we are sitting or standing. We want that keyboard actually flat or slightly tilted away from us. I know a lot of the time we see those keyboards that are kind of propped up. We want to actually avoid those ones. We want to keep those keyboards flat. You want to try not to anchor your wrists on the edge of the table and keep those wrists in neutral. So neutral alignment meaning completely straight. We don't want to tilt it up or really, really tilt it down. We want to just keep them in that straight line right there. For the mouse, we want positioned at elbow height. Place the elbows at 90-degree angle. Positioned adjacent to the keyboard. So if your keyboard's here, your mouse should just be right on next to it. Shouldn't be too far in front of it or behind it. So you're moving that arm constantly. We want them just side by side. We want to avoid any wrists or palm rests. Again, those are going to kind of throw our wrists out of alignment. So we want to keep that wrist in neutral. We want to avoid any excessive gripping. And then monitor. We're going to keep that monitor about arm's distance length away, about 18 to 26 inches. Placed directly behind the keyboard, and the top of that screen should be at eye level. So we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So again, this is just a brief overview. I'm going to invite Colby up on the screen now, and we're going to kind of go through these in a bit more detail. Again, all this info will be available to you, sent to you, and it's available on our website. And if anything we do today cause any discomfort, we ask you just refrain from that position. Yeah, Colby is on with me now. How you doing, Colby?
I'm good.
Awesome. All right. So as we can see, Colby is sitting at his desk right here. First thing we're going to cover is a 90-90-90 rule. So when I say 90, what do I mean? I mean a 90-degree angle, so that perfect right angle. So when we're talking about the 90-90-90, we're talking all about the lower extremities or your legs. So first thing, Colby's hips should be at a 90-degree angle. So right now he's kind of leaned back. So he wants to be a little bit more upright so that hip is right at a 90-degree angle. Perfect. The next thing we're going to go down to his knees. So you see the bottom of his leg is right below his knee. It's at that perfect 90-degree angle. Thank you, Colby. And the last part there is his foot, his feet. They should be bent to that perfect 90-degree angle. If he's got his foot his leg too extended or bent underneath his chair, that ankle might be a little too bent, just like that. So we want to keep those right there flat on the floor. If your chair is too high, something you can do, obviously we love an adjustable chair that can raise and lower, so we have those feet flat on the floor. But if your chair is too high and you're unable to adjust it, you could always grab something like a book or a small shelf, something like that, place it under your feet. Colby's chair is adjustable there, so he's able to keep his feet flat without a problem. All right. We want the thighs to be supported by the seat of the chair. We want about that 2 to 4 inches that we mentioned earlier between the bend of your knee and the edge of the chair. So you can see Colby's legs aren't directly rammed against the edge of that chair. He's got a little bit of distance between them, but not too much. If your chair isn't deep enough and you're kind of stuck too far forward, something you can do, grab a towel roll or a rolled up sweatshirt, a pillow, and you could put it in the low back. You can see Colby there has a lumbar support that kind of keeps him in that good neutral position. This also works same thing when your car, if you have a car seat that's too deep and you end up resting the back of your legs in in your car. You could just do the same thing, grab a pillow, stick it in the low of your back in that car seat, and it'll bring you forward a little bit. Again, hips should be at 90 degrees, slightly rolled forward. Colby is in a perfect position there. Arms should be rested by our sides. You can see Colby's resting his arms on the sides of his chair. Again, a perfect chair will have adjustable arm rests so that you can raise and lower, which Colby's do. If not, we want to be able to bring those arms forward and rest them on that table in front of us. All right. We want to make sure, I'm going to have Colby demonstrate. We don't want to have those arms bent back at all. So Colby, go ahead and bring your elbows back behind you. Good. So if Colby's arms are like that, there's actually a superficial kind of nerve that runs along the back of our arm here. If his arms are bent too much, a lot of the times what can happen, we can kind of put some pressure on that superficial nerve. I want you to kind of think when you hit your funny bone, you get those tingles down your arm. If we bend too much, we can compress that nerve and kind of get some of those symptoms into our hand, maybe some of that numbness and tingling and just discomfort. So we want to make sure our arms aren't too bent. I'll have Colby correct himself. Good. It's okay to have him a little bit out in front or at 90 degrees. Anywhere between there is good. So now let's talk computer setup. We want that monitor at eye level, keyboard low enough to keep the elbows at 90 degrees. So obviously Colby got some books right there. If he was on his laptop, it would be very, very low. So he got some books that he could raise his laptop up or his monitor up. Ideally, we'd want the top of that monitor to be right about at eye level. So Colby's is a little bit low, but that's okay. He's doing his best to kind of raise that monitor up and keep that in line. So Colby's got a perfect example of this. I know some of you might be thinking this, how can I do this if I have a laptop? If I'm working from home, how can I do this best with my laptop? So what this technically means is that laptops can actually be ergonomic. The best way to make a laptop ergonomic is to either use an external keyboard or prop your laptop up the way Colby has here. Using that external keyboard like Colby has in front of him, it allows him to keep his arms bent at that 90-degree angle while also having his monitor in front of him at that proper height. Going through all these things, I think people kind of continuously get wrapped up in that perfect desk setup, which can be especially hard right now when we're all working from home, especially given the current global pandemic. I want us to try to shift our thinking into a movement-focused work setup rather than a static setup. So you should constantly be changing, whether that be changing your position in the chair, moving from sitting to standing, just switching things up. Make sure you're getting up every 45 minutes or so, just to kind of give yourself a good change in position. No one setup is perfect. The key is always to try and have ourselves in a good ergonomic position and follow these guidelines, but constantly moving is what's important. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Colby, and he's going to cover some more information for us.
All right. Thank you for that, Ryan. Don't feel too stressed if this is a lot of information at once. Remember, our team is going to be able to send you an email with a packet of all the information regarding everything we've talked about today. That being said, I'd like to spend a little bit of time today talking about why you should have an ergonomic setup, the reason. One problem that can arise from sitting at a desk for long periods of time is something that we PTs like to call upper cross syndrome. All right, so here's a slide that kind of displays what I'm talking about. So what is upper cross syndrome? This is more commonly seen as forward head posture. And what it is a common condition that describes muscular imbalances in the neck, shoulders, and chest. Basically, a tight chest and upper trap muscles are typically accompanied by some weak neck and shoulder stabilization muscles. More specifically, you have muscles called your deep neck flexors, your rhomboids, and your serratus muscles that usually are a little bit weak, almost in most people. These prolonged muscular imbalances can cause many issues such as headaches, weakness, aches and pains in your neck and shoulder, as well as decreased range of motion. Over long periods of time, this strain and stress that builds up in your neck and shoulders can turn into a chronic issue. All right, I'm gonna get rid of this slide and I'm gonna show you some exercises that you can do to help fix these imbalances. And if you're lucky, you might get a little bit taller. Okay, for the first one, we're gonna do a chin tuck. All this is you're giving yourself a double chin. I'll show you from the side. Luckily, we're all wearing masks wherever we go. So this is something that you can do in the car while you're waiting in traffic. You can do it on the subway. You can do it walking around. The mask hides it all. For this one, again, you're tucking your chin in. I don't want you to look down. I want you to just bring your chin back as if you're trying to touch, if you're a guy, you're trying to touch your Adam's apple with your chin. You're going to bring it back, hold for about 3 seconds, and you're going to perform 10 of these. Okay, if you'd like to do them now, feel free to. The next one I'm going to show you is called a scapular squeeze. So all we're doing is we're taking our shoulder blades and we're squeezing them together. Okay? I'll show you from the back. I'm here, and I'm squeezing my shoulder blades back. The key for this exercise is I don't want you to shrug your shoulders up. So just bring them straight back and squeeze as if there's a finger between your shoulder blades that you're squeezing, okay? When you do this one, you're gonna feel your chest pop out a little bit. For the scapular squeezes, you can do this sitting, you can do this standing, you can even do this lying down. It might be a little harder there. All right. And as I mentioned before, a big problem that can occur and that can accompany these periods of forward head posture from sitting all day is what PTs also like to call suboccipital headaches. So these types of headaches will typically start behind your head at the base of your skull, and they'll wrap up around your head, and they'll go up right into your eyes. It'll almost feel like you're wearing, your hat is a little bit too tight, okay? So on top of the exercises I just showed you, these are some stretches that are gonna help combat these tight muscles. So the first one we're gonna do is you're gonna take your head, you're gonna bring it, your ear to your shoulder, and you should feel a nice stretch in the muscles in your neck and the top of your shoulder. We're gonna hold this for about 30 seconds. This one you can perform sitting, standing. Perfect. So when you're doing this exercise, we'll do the other side. I want you to hold it for a long 30 seconds. That way we get some sort of change in the muscle and it doesn't revert back to the old tight muscle it was before. All right. While you finish that one up, the next one we're gonna do is you're gonna take the back of your head and you're bringing your nose to your armpit. I hope you showered. This one you should feel a stretch in the back of your neck, and you might also feel it into the top of the shoulder as well. So again, you're just bringing your nose to your armpit. And hold for 30 seconds, and we'll do both sides. While you finish that stretch, remember, if you have any strong sensation of stretching that feels a little too strong and it's causing a little bit of pain, just back off a little bit. Try to stretch in a relatively pain-free range of motion. All right. And like Ryan had said before, movement is key. Frequency of movement during the day is the most important factor in avoiding musculoskeletal problems. I found that setting a posture break reminder for myself on my phone or my laptop every hour to move has really helped me feel looser throughout my days. Now I'm going to invite Ryan back onto the screen, and he and I are going to bring you through a quick desk mobility routine that I'd highly suggest you incorporate into 1 or 2 of your posture breaks every day. Feel free to follow along, and you can check today's posture break off of your list. Hey, Ryan.
What's going on, Colby? That was great. Very informative.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started with some of these exercises. I know I'm getting a little stiff just sitting here. So go ahead, Colby. I want to have Colby stand up real quick. He's going to start us off as I explain. So the first thing we're going to do, this first one's going to be a rotational exercise for our upper back. So what Colby's going to do is face the desk in front of him. He's going to place his hands near the edge of that desk. First thing you're going to do is we're going to want a slight bend in your hips, standing with your feet planted on the floor. And all you're gonna do is rotate one arm up towards the ceiling. And as you do this, you should feel a nice stretch through your upper back and as you rotate. Colby's gonna go up and hold it for about 5 seconds. As he comes down, he's gonna go ahead and switch arms. He's gonna go right on over to his right side. Like I said, he's gonna go and hold for about just 5 seconds, and we're gonna do about 10 on each side. So this one, what we're kind of going for is getting that rotational aspect in your upper back. After this, we're gonna show you another one to kind of get some rotation in your lower back as well. Colby can also do this one seated if you'd like. If standing is a little bit of issue or you have any dizziness, you can go ahead and just sit in a chair and pretty much do the same exact thing, putting your hands on the desk there. And all you're gonna do is bring that arm up, reach up towards the ceiling, rotate up as far as you can, alternating sides. Perfect. Again, we'd wanna do this about 10 times each side. I'll have Colby go one more time on his right side and then we'll move right along. Good. For this next one, we're gonna do a lower back rotational. So pretty much the same thing, but now instead of facing the desk, Colby's actually gonna face the camera this way. He's gonna have one of his hips towards the desk. He's gonna plant one hand on the desk there. And then with the opposite hand not on the desk, he's gonna rotate up and away just the same way he did before. So you'll notice here, if you're watching Colby, he's getting a little bit more rotation than he did with the first exercise. That's because he's now combining his upper back rotation with his lower back. So this one's kind of targeting that lower back or that lumbar spine that we talk about in PT. A lot of the time when we're sitting all day, these joints can kind of get a little stiff. So just taking some breaks throughout the day, getting a little rotation back in there should feel great. Colby can do about 10 this direction, and I'll have him switch. Once you do 10, he can put his left hand down on that table. He's gonna face the wall away from us. And he'll do the same thing this side. How are these feeling, Colby?
These feel great.
Awesome.
Feel looser already.
Love to hear it. Great. Last one here. All right. The next we're going to do is a standing hip extension. This one's a bit more of an exercise than it is a stretch. Colby's going to stand somewhere where he's got something in front of him that can support him. It's not a balance exercise by any means, so just make sure you have something sturdy in front of you that can support you. Colby's going to be standing right here in front of his desk, and all he's going to do is bring one leg back behind him, keeping his knee nice and straight. When you're doing this, you want to focus on your butt muscles, your glutes, as we call them. You're going to really contract those guys and try to bring that leg back behind you. One common compensation or something that our body does naturally to try to help us, Colby will show you here, he might lean his whole body forward. So if you kind of see Colby there, he's actually not bringing his leg back. His trunk's just moving forward and kind of helping him bring the leg back. So you really want to try as best you can to keep your torso upright and really bring that leg back as far as you can. Don't worry about really throwing it back there. Just go as far as you feel like you can, really squeezing those glutes. Especially during the day, I'll have Colby go ahead and switch sides here and show you the other side as well. Especially during the day, if we're sitting in a chair for extended periods of time, these muscles tend to just shut off. They're not working hard because we're really just sitting on them. So it's good throughout the day to just get up and fire these guys up. They help a lot with walking and stairs, a lot of benefits from working these guys out. Awesome. And with that, I'll have Colby come on over and I'm going to show you guys some exercises now.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Ryan. I feel good after those. All right. So for this one, this is what we like to call a standing quad stretch. So the quads are the muscles in the front of your thigh. When you perform this one, make sure you perform it near a desk or a chair, just so you can hold on to it if you need help with balance. So what I want you to do is I want you to line up your shoulders, your hips, and your knee up, and hold that line vertically while you grab your ankle and bring it up towards your butt. For this one, what I want to make sure you do is hold it for 30 seconds. Just like that. If you want to turn to the front so we can see how you're holding that line vertically that I was talking about. Good. So one compensation people can do is Ryan's going to bring his leg out to the side, and he might get a little bit more of a stretch, but now he's leaning. Okay. So try to keep everything vertical. Perfect. If you want to feel a stronger stretch, what you can actually do is grab your foot, and you might be able to go a little bit farther and bring your hips just a little bit back. Perfect. And we're going to do both sides. We're going to hit it for 30 seconds. Good. All right, for this next one, I'm going to have Ryan sit down, and this is going to be a hamstring stretch. So your quads are in the front of your leg. Your hamstrings are in the back of your thigh, okay? So while he's seated, he's going to place his heel in front of him, and he's going to straighten his leg. He's going to try to arch his back and bend forward at the hips until he feels a stretch through the back of his thigh, okay? One common compensation is that he'll slouch over to try to touch his toes. We don't need you to touch your toes here. You'll get a better stretch if you just keep that back nice and flat as you bend forward at the hips. Perfect.
Good on this one, Colby.
Good. And remember, hold it for 30 seconds, and you should feel that right in the back of the thigh. Good. And if you want to make this a little bit harder, what you can do is you can place your foot on a stool or a chair. The higher it is, the harder it's going to be. And Ryan's going to do the same thing. He's going to arch his back slightly and then bend forward at the hips until he feels a nice stretch into the back of his thigh. Good. Perfect. All right. The next one is what we call a seated cat-cow or a cat-camel, some people will call it. For this one, Ryan is going to sit in his chair. First, he's going to arch his back and push his chest up and out. He's going to hold this position for about 3 seconds. He's going to get a nice arch in his lower back. Then he's going to slouch, round his back, bring his belly button closer to the back of the chair. Perfect. Hold this position for about 3 seconds. Then he's going to bring his chest back up. Exactly, just like that. Perfect. And we're going to repeat this 10 times in each position, okay?
Definitely
Good.
feel this one too.
Perfect. All right, and I have one more for us. This is the last one. This is what I like to call a wall angel. So I'm going to bring you over so you can see me at the wall. For this one, you're going to put your arms up like a goalpost position. I want you to lay your forearms flat against the back of the wall. For this one, you can do it sitting or standing. And I want you to bring your arms up the wall as high as you can. And then you're going to come back down. You're going to perform 10 of these. And when you do it, just make sure that your forearms stay flat against the wall. Say you can only get up to here, and then your forearms start to come off the wall. That's fine. Just stop right there and come back down. These can be difficult at first, and I want you to only move through pain-free range of motion. So as you continue to do this exercise in the future, you're going to find that you're definitely going to improve. Okay? That's all we have for today. Remember to try to perform these posture exercise routines about once or twice a day during your breaks. It was a pleasure talking with you all today, and I'm going to invite the host back onto the screen for our Q&A portion. Ryan and I both appreciate you taking time out of your day to hang with us today.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, and now the fun part starts. Hey, thanks, Meg. We're glad you feel better already. So let's get into some questions. We have an interesting first question. It's Mrs. Pena. She wants to know, Ryan, how you got to be so handsome.
Oh my. All right. I got to give all the credit to my mom, who is undoubtedly on this webinar right now watching.
All
All
right.
the credit all to her.
Yeah, start out a little lighthearted note. All right, so let's dive into some of the questions that some of the attendees had. One of the first questions, Colby, you demonstrated a lot of the exercises. A few of the attendees would like to know, what's the frequency? How often should they do these exercises? How many reps per day? What's your recommendation?
So for the stretches, you're going to hold the stretch for about 30 seconds, 30 long seconds. So if you want to set the timer on your phone or your computer, I highly suggest doing that. You're going to perform the exercises where you have to do repetitions of them. Just shoot for 10 times. When you do that, You can rest. If you still feel good, you can shoot for another set of 10 if you're feeling good. I want you to perform this once or twice during the day during those posture breaks that you set up every hour. Okay?
Fabulous. Ryan, anything to add?
No, I think most important thing here, and this is what we talk about a lot in Spear, is listen to your body. If you do a set of 10 and you're feeling really fatigued, you can cut it right there. If you do a set of 10 and it feels all right, like Colby said, you can always tack on another set of 10 until you're kind of really feeling those muscles work a little bit more. But nobody knows your body like you do, so kind of listen to your own body.
Awesome. I think that's really, really great advice, boys. Thanks so much for answering that one. We have two questions that are similar, so I'm going to combine them into one. Ryan, why don't you take the first one, and Colby, you can take the second one. So the first question is there a specific pillow or a lumbar support that you recommend to your clients in the clinic?
So we don't use a specific brand or pillow in our clinics. Really, it's kind of a bit of a trial and error, whatever works best for you. You definitely want something firm enough that's going to support that low back. If it's got too much give, then your back is going to kind of just fall back into that kind of unsupported spot. You kind of saw in Colby's video a bit there, but he had something a little bit springy that kind of offered support, but had a little bit of give as well. You don't want something that's too firm that's going to put pressure on that low back, but something that kind of gives you that little tactile cue that kind of keep your back upright and supports you.
Gotcha. And of a similar, but we're getting a lot of questions on a desk chair. I imagine the answer is fairly similar, but I want to kick it over to you, Colby. Anything to add on a specific desk chair that people should be looking for?
So it's more of what does the desk chair have? I don't think there's a specific brand that is perfect for every single person, but you want to look for those qualities that we talked about. So the lumbar support, you want to look for something that's adjustable. You want to look for something that has adjustable armrest. That's going to be a huge one. You're going to want to look for something that possibly has a headrest as well, which is going to keep you upright, keep that 90-90 rule that we're talking about, 90 degrees at the hips, at the knees. And it's going to be different for everyone based on how much you're willing to spend. And just make sure that the chair is comfortable. Honestly, if you're on Amazon and you're looking through desk chairs on Amazon, read the reviews. Take a second to read the reviews, see what other customers say about it. And then that's going to help you find which one works for you. Obviously, it's a little harder to go in person to try out a desk chair now, but if you can, that's obviously going to be the best way because you'll be able to feel the chair.
And Colby said that you all can email him directly if you'd like him to review your desk chair.
Yeah, anytime.
All right, Colby, we're getting a few questions on the wall angel stretch. So would you mind demonstrating that stretch again and just talking through the muscles and the areas of your back and your posture that you're focusing on while doing those?
Absolutely. Here, let me get into the position again. Okay. So the first muscles that we're using are actually those muscles we talked about earlier, your shoulder blade muscles that squeeze them back. Okay. So first you'll squeeze your shoulders back, and that's going to get you flat against the wall. Next, what you're going to do is by bringing your arms up here, we're working some of your external rotators. These are the muscles that are on your shoulder blade that help basically move your shoulder blade in tandem with your arm as you go up and down and you do different motions with your arm. So as we squeeze our shoulder blades back and we squeeze our hands and forearms back into the wall and you push up, you're going to feel muscles in your back. You're going to feel muscles in your arms, in your shoulders, but you're also going to feel them in the back because we're working muscles that are attached to the rotator cuff, which is just in the back of your shoulder.
It's great, Colby. Excellent form.
It's definitely a tricky one.
Definitely a tricky one, yeah. And we have other, on Spear, we have other.
Right there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We have other webinars that discuss, shoulder pain. And if you want to peruse our YouTube, you'll be able to find those as well for a little more information.
Yeah, I love the plug. So we're getting a few questions on if you don't have a desk set up. We have a lot of people working from home through the pandemic. So we've got two questions here. Ryan, I'll let you kick this one off. The first question is from Anonymous. They want to know, what's the best position for lying in bed and working on your laptop? Are there specific trays they can utilize? How should their neck and pillows be positioned? And then the second question is, what about working from a couch on the laptop? Do you gentlemen have any recommendations? I'll let you guys take it away.
Yeah, so while I don't have any specific recommendations for a specific tray or anything that you should be putting your laptop on, a general rule of thumb, try to hit as many of these guidelines as you can. So obviously when you're sitting on the couch or if you're in bed working, that's obviously not going to be anywhere near an ideal setup. But if you can try to kind of get your arms in a correct position, use an external keyboard to kind of make sure that your wrists are in neutral, making sure your low back is supported. You know, if you're not in a perfect setup or somewhere that you're going to be able to get a perfect ergonomic setup, that's okay, as long as you're trying to hit as many of those markers as you can and kind of protect as many of those joints as you can. The couch, similar. Make sure there's some low back support, feet are flat on the ground, elbows relaxed. Just hit as many of those guidelines as you can, and that will definitely kind of make a difference as far as working from home.
Absolutely. I agree with all of that. And one thing I'd like to add is, remember what I want you to go home with today and just really think about is that movement is key. So you could have the perfect office chair, you could have the perfect office setup, but if you're sitting at a desk for 6 to 8 hours, maybe even more, without getting up, without taking any breaks, that's going to be a lot of stress into your spine, into your neck, into your back, into your whole body. That's going to add up throughout the day, and you're still going to be sore. Somebody could have a terrible setup, but they could be taking posture breaks every 45 minutes, getting up, going to get water, stretching, doing one of the exercises throughout the day. And they actually might feel pretty good with, even though their setup might not be completely ergonomic. So remember, take breaks. We suggest every hour. Do your best. Try to incorporate it into one of your days, work days coming up next week. Pick one day, say, I'm going to get up every single hour, and see how you feel at the end of the day and see if it was worth it to do it.
Awesome. Thanks, gentlemen. I notice as you're talking about posture, I keep on sitting up straighter, bringing my shoulders back.
Yeah, you look good, Dave.
Love it. Oh, thanks, pal.
Look at that.
Yeah.
There we go. Trying to work on that. So another question from Naomi. She has a really good question. Ryan, you mentioned a couple times about keeping your wrists in neutral. She wants to know what are some strategies she can utilize to keep her wrists in neutral while using the laptop if she doesn't have a prop support available?
That's a great question. So first thing we're going to kind of go over a little bit here, just making sure we're completely aware of what wrist in neutral means. So you just want to make sure that when your arms are resting on your table or wherever they might be, you have that your wrist and your hand is directly in line with your forearm here. So if you don't have, if you're in a kind of position that is forcing your wrist up too much or down too much, you're going to put a little bit too much pressure on either the top of the wrist, the bottom of the wrist. You might hear about that carpal tunnel if you're throwing up too much. A good kind of way to go here, external keyboard. I know we definitely mentioned a couple times. Investing in one of those would actually be great, just to kind of, if your laptop's, way up here, you can kind of bring your external keyboard down here to kind of keep that forearm down, that wrist in neutral. But just kind of get as close as you can. I know a lot of the times people feel like they need to kind of have their wrists up for whatever reason to get to that keyboard. But just getting as close to you can to that neutral position is definitely going to be the most beneficial for you and for your posture, for your wrist, and preventing injury in the future.
Awesome. Really thorough answer. All right, we're getting into the juicy stuff now, the nitty gritty. Some great questions coming in, so keep them coming. Remember, everyone, try and direct your questions in the Q&A so we can best answer them. It's much easier to monitor than in the chat. So we have a couple questions on standing desks and standing frequency. So I'm going to ask you guys first. Colby, why don't you start us off? What's your opinion and thoughts on standing desks?
Standing desks, amazing. They are, almost all of them are adjustable. So you can go from a sitting desk to a standing desk pretty easily. The key for sitting and standing desks is you want to be able to change position every hour or so. So stand for an hour, work at your computer, then sit for an hour. Remember, the whole thing is taking movement breaks and posture breaks throughout the day. That's going to be your friend. But yes, I love standing desks. I think they're great.
Colby really stole the words out of my mouth there. I mean, the good thing about standing desks, one is not going to be better than the other as far as sitting or standing, but it's great to kind of diversify, what throughout the workday, move to a standing desk, move to a sitting desk, whether you're sitting on a great ergonomic chair or you're sitting on a physio ball, something bouncy that kind of has more give, switch things up. It's going to change your muscles and which muscles are working. The good analogy I like to use is if we think about when we go to sleep at night, obviously right when we get in bed, we feel super comfortable, completely supported, but we never go to bed and we stay in the same position all throughout the night. throughout the night, we toss and turn because even while we're in a nice, comfortable, cushioned bed, too much pressure on any muscle or any position is going to cause some discomfort. That's the reason we toss and turn at night. If we stayed in the same position, we'd wake up with bed sores because we just putting too much pressure on those high pressure spots. So it's good to kind of just constantly be switching positions, whether it be at a standing desk, sitting desk, chair you're using, not using a chair. It's always good to switch it up.
Yeah, I'm personally a big fan of having both options because sometimes when you're standing for too long, that can be uncomfortable as well. So it's really nice to have that option.
Definitely.
Just remember, you don't need anything fancy. Sometimes I take some of my wife's shoe boxes and stack them on top of each other.
Exactly.
That's often ways to do it. So I apologize to Naomi. I misread her question just a little bit. So back to the neutral wrist. She was referencing how do you keep your wrist neutral when using a mouse, not necessarily your keyboard. So I don't know if you gentlemen have anything to add to that so we can answer Naomi's question the way she asked it.
Good question. Excellent question, actually. So you want to avoid keeping your hand on your mouse throughout the day. I know a lot of people constantly using their mouse, but if you're using it to click away, every now and then just take it off, relax it and rest it. Just get it back to that neutral position. Just again, it's all about movement here. So if you're clicking, you're using that mouse for a solid, consistent 30 minutes, give it a rest. I know some mouses you can use in both hands. If that's not the case, just make sure you're taking your hand off that mouse there, getting your wrist back in neutral, whether it be just for a minute to 30 seconds, just giving it that relief of, being in this position for a while to letting it relax here for a bit is going to do a world of difference to relax those muscles in the forearms and not putting as much pressure on the bottom of that wrist right there.
Fabulous. Thanks for clarifying that, Ryan.
Of course.
We have a few questions on the exercises. A lot of people want to know, are these exercises available to do in sitting or is standing better? You demonstrated some in standing, some in sitting. For the wall angels, for example, Colby, is that an option to do it in sitting if you can't stand?
Yeah, so actually when I was performing them, demonstrating them, I was sitting when I did them. Sitting or standing, it's going to be whatever's comfortable for you. If my main focus for that one isn't necessarily a balance exercise or, a leg strengthening exercise for the wall angels. I just want you, whatever position you can get into that's comfortable, where your back is flat against the wall and your forearms are against the wall, is a good position for me. Same thing for most of the other stretches that we did, some of the exercises that we did in sitting and standing. Whatever position is the most comfortable for you to be in, that you think that you can do consistently. Yeah. Okay, because if you're not comfortable when you're doing the exercise, I don't really think you're going to do them. I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off Colby there a bit, one that's coming to mind, I'll kind of just remind everyone real quick, the quad stretch. This one's definitely a tough one to do if balance is an issue. Standing on one leg, I know, isn't easy for everyone. So it's okay if you can't do this one. You can just skip this one for a little bit. But just make sure that no matter what you're doing with these exercises, the hamstring stretch, we did that one standing. But if balance is an issue standing on this one leg, it's okay to do that one seated as well. And you can get the same benefit from all these stretches, whether you're doing them seated or standing.
And Ryan, you got some good hamstring mobility. You've been practicing that one, huh?
Been working on it.
All right. So another question that I love getting in the clinic that I'm really excited to hear your expertise on, gentlemen. And Ryan, why don't we start with you? Fiorella wants to know what your thoughts are on using a balance ball chair, and if you recommend it or not, and what your thoughts are on balance ball chairs.
So yeah, I touched on this a bit earlier, but we didn't go into too much detail on it. The great thing about balance ball chairs, they kind of challenge your core a bit. So when we think about sitting in a normal chair, a lot of our muscles are relaxed because we're leaning against the back of the chair, everything's supported. When we're sitting on a bouncy ball chair, as we kind of said here, our physio ball chair, it kind of forces us to activate all of our muscles to keep us upright. You sit down on a bouncy ball chair, it's moving under you. You can't just sit on it and relax completely. So it's a great one to kind of switch things up, wake up that core musculature. It really fires your core, your back muscles. You're using your leg muscles to kind of keep you up. So again, a great alternative, something to try. I wouldn't recommend using that as your main chair and only using that, but definitely factoring that in, using it, for an hour a day, 2 hours a day to kind of wake up those core muscles. It definitely has a ton of benefits. I definitely use that in the clinic. At Chambers Street, a good amount. So yeah, I definitely recommend using that, but definitely not using it as your main chair.
Awesome. Colby, any thoughts, any insight to add?
Yeah, that was a perfect answer. I agree. You don't want to use it 8 hours a day. But again, it's a little bit of an exercise in itself. So if you use it as a way to just have a posture break for an hour, that's perfect. You're sitting in this chair, constantly changing positions throughout the whole time that you're sitting there. It's a great workout.
All right. We are cruising along and you guys are providing such great information. So another really great question that we get a lot in the clinic that I think you'll both have a lot of insight into. We have a few people asking, what's the best way to hold your cell phone? What's the best way to read a book? What are your thoughts on neck posture and posture in general while doing activities that we do frequently throughout the day, like those two things? Colby, why don't you kick us off on what's the best position for your cell phone?
I'll go grab my phone and I'll kind of show you. Throughout the day, we like to hold our heads down. So when we're walking around, we might be sitting in our home, on our bed, whatever it is, and our heads are down. This is putting a huge strain on our neck, our shoulders. Look at my whole posture is kind of rounded here. So what I want us to do is try to think about that chin tuck. Keep your head up and your eyes down. So remember, you don't have to put your head down for your eyes to go down. Your eyes can go look down at your phone. You can keep your arms nice and rested and relaxed next to you. And you can text, call, whatever you're doing right on your phone right here. Okay? Same thing for reading a book. I don't want you looking down onto it, looking at your lap. Keep everything up, chin tuck, and then look down that way.
That's great. And we at Spear, just for all you listeners out there, don't recommend texting and walking across the street in New York City.
Yep. You'll be in for another injury.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No.
So another really great question that I think a lot of people are wondering, when doing these exercises, do you recommend starting with a chin tuck, or is that not necessary for doing these exercises?
I can kind of start that one off. Chin tuck overall is going to be a great exercise. It's not quite necessary to begin for all the stretches. For example, those lower extremity or those leg stretches, the hamstring, the quad that we were doing. Doing a chin tuck isn't really going to affect those stretches much at all. But as far as posture and giving yourself a little cue as to fix your posture throughout the day, it's definitely a great one to start with, just bringing that head back. Colby covered it great, but if I'm looking this way, my computer monitor's here, throughout the day, if I start with a great posture, just from standard fatigue and using those back muscles to kind of keep me up, I'm just going to slowly start to collapse. This head's going to fall forward. I'm going to be putting a lot of tension on these muscles back here. So it's great to kind of just constantly remind yourself, like Colby said, whether it be once every 45 minutes to an hour. So just kind of remind yourself, bring that chin in. You're going to be working these deep neck flexors back here and giving that back of the neck a good stretch there. So yeah, it's a great one to kind of do to start those stretches, but don't feel like you need to do that before doing all the stretches.
All right, thanks. I think we have time for at least one more question. So I'm going to ask you, gentlemen, this one. Ethel wants to know, what's the best way to stand when you're washing dishes or washing your face in the bathroom sink, maybe brushing your teeth, all those type of things that we do on a daily basis?
So when you're washing your face, brushing teeth, all of that, what I want you to try to do is not to stay bent over the sink. I know sometimes when you're washing your face, you'll put some water, you'll dab it on your face, and then you'll wait a second and you're still down here. Just take a break, stand up, especially when you're washing dishes, take breaks. A lot of times I know for me personally, if I'm doing the dishes, I'm washing them. If after a while, I'm going to start to feel it in my back. I don't want you to fight through this and to keep finishing the dishes. Just stand up for 10 seconds, maybe even try some of those cat camel exercises we gave you where you try to open up your chest and then go right back to it. Pain is going to be your compass. If a position is causing you some pain and discomfort, it's probably not a great position to be in for prolonged periods of time. So just take breaks, stand up, breathe some air, then you can go back down.
Always keep.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for answering those questions. You guys were fabulous today. I'm a physical therapist for 7 years and I learned a ton. So I'm really excited to integrate some of the things that you guys taught me today. So really appreciate your time and energy. Thought you guys were fabulous.
Not a problem.
So with that being said, We hope today's talk was valuable and that you learned more about ergonomics and postural exercises, and that it was really valuable for all of you. If we didn't get to your question, we'll do our best to reach out to you directly afterward. We'll also be sending a handout after the webinar with a recap of important facts as well as exercises for you to have as a reference. As a reminder, today, your presenters were Colby Choi, and Colby practices at our Midtown West and our West 75th Street location, and Ryan Pena, who practices down in Tribeca on Chambers Street. Feel free to jot down their contact information so you can reach out to them directly with any questions and or to schedule an appointment. Their emails are there. They're both very, very responsive to emails and look forward to communicating with you and perhaps even seeing you in the clinic if you'd like. With that being said, our Q&A moderator was Michelle Rooney. She's the director at our Chelsea office. Feel free to reach out to her as well with any questions. And we'd also be happy to help facilitate with you getting an appointment if you need with one of our fabulous therapists. So at Spear, we treat an array of conditions from head to toe. And as a reminder, we're open for in-person visits as well as telehealth sessions. Should you feel that you could benefit from some individualized guidance and treatment, please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us individually, and we will personally coordinate you being set up with one of our team members for an evaluation. Lastly, at Spear, we'll be continuing to host webinars throughout 2021, covering a variety of topics. We look forward to seeing all of you there. Please follow us on social media and check your inboxes to learn more about upcoming topics and the schedule. Thank you all very much for spending time with us today. We hope you enjoyed our webinar. We wish you the best and be well.